Regularly scheduled programs will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the NFL football game live and in color.
Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown.
Kicked by Hartley. And it's good! It's good! Hell is frozen over. The Saints are on their way to the Super Bowl.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show, Week 9 in the NFL, Week 10 in college football. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, despite what may have happened yesterday, there is still football to be played in the upcoming weeks. That means America is still very much America. You can hold on to your hats.
I think a lot of Democrats would like to shut down the games for the week like they did during after Kennedy was assassinated, but probably not going to happen.
No, I think, if anything, you'll want NFL Thursday to come up faster than you want. I mean, this Thursday night matchup, one for the ages.
Yes.
The Browns may have their chance to win a football game against the Ravens.
That's jeez. And now you're going to see Hillary Clinton's going to win the election too, right? Okay, sure.
But that's this upcoming week. This last week, I wanted to pull out a stat that the Washington Post put up in an article about the NFL ratings. And just to kind of explain that, ratings aside, this has not been the greatest NFL football season.
Oh, no, not at all.
They went down and broke down the numbers. So going into last week, this last week, before the games happened, there were 18 teams that were at 500 or worse, and 5 teams that were at 4-3. So there were, as the Washington Post put it, in other words, there are 23 teams that are not must-see TV to anyone but their most fervent fans.
Yep.
The other thing that they pulled up is they went through this website called NFLpenalties.com, where they actually keep track of all the flags that are thrown every week. Officials have thrown, going into this last weekend, of course, 1,996 flags through, that would have been 8 weeks at the time. The Big Lead also ran a story from Pro Football Reference as their source that holding penalties have increased 43% since 2011.
Jeez.
And pass interference is up 45% over the same period.
Okay, well, let me just stop you there for a second. Let's talk about those two things. What's the most exciting play in football? A cool passing play, right? Mm-hmm. And what do we have there? Where are those 2 penalties called the most? Well, obviously pass interference on passing plays, but like holding, same deal.
Yeah, holding when quarterbacks are rolling out of the pocket.
Yeah, so
from the pressure, throwing it downfield. Yeah.
When you're throwing flags 43% more often on the play that everybody tuned in to see, of course the football's not going to be as good. So yeah, there's part of your problem right there. And the matchups haven't been great. It just hasn't been a good year.
And like I said, that's 18 teams that are 500 or worse out of 32, more than half.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. And then they said that the 5 more that were 4-3, 23 teams. Like we've talked about it before. At this point, there are 3 teams that matter.
Patriots,
Cowboys. They're both 7-1.
I'll throw the Raiders in there, I suppose, because they're 7-2.
Raiders are 7-2. Then you get Falcons at 6-3.
Chiefs are 7-2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but listen to the teams we just listed off. Of those teams,
it's Patriots and Cowboys are 100% good teams.
Yeah,
those are teams that you want to watch them play every week.
Yep.
Oakland is a fun team, and they had a big win on Sunday night, which we'll get to shortly. But the rest of it is kind of a mess. Like I'm looking through it, there's a lot of 5-4, 4-4s. Like hell, the Minnesota Vikings. Remember, they were a team that we had as 100%. They were a good team. This is exciting, good for them. They've lost 3 in a row, and now their lead in the division is a half game
over who?
Detroit.
Detroit.
Detroit's up to 5-4.
And then you've got, a Packers team who is like him or hate him, is a good national draw, a team that people will tune in to watch. They're 4-4, and they're just not good. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. That's just not a good football team. They're a very average Well, they're exactly what they are. They're an 8-8 football team, and you're seeing it right now. You've got that. You've got teams like the Steelers are 4-4. Another national draw that's not playing well. There's a lot of reasons for it.
Yeah.
You know?
So, in terms of the on-the-field products, there's just a lot of bad football being played this season, in addition to a lot of referee interference. Because the other thing that they threw in there is they don't have the stat there, but there's an emphasis on they're back to cutting down on the celebration. So there's a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct flags we haven't seen in the past too.
Yep.
So, whatever you want to do, NFL, you're signing your own death wish here, but NFL football has become a little bit more like, we talk about football every week. We love watching football. Honestly, the Sundays this season have seemed more of a chore than they have in years past.
Exactly.
That's not the way it should be.
Exactly. You look forward to college football. I mean, just about any game, really, too. I mean, if it's a good competitive game, I'll watch anybody. Mm-hmm. And the NFL, even the big matchups, I'm going, I don't know, Yeah. I mean, I would watch like 7-1 New England at 7-1 Dallas. That would be great. But do I give a damn about 6-3 so-and-so at 5-4? No. It's not that exciting to me. And they've got to fix this. They've got to, because this is not, I said way back at the beginning of the season, somebody put up, the ratings are down like 20% this first week. I said, I'll worry about it in week 8 if they're still down. They're still down. And now it's like, okay, now you've got a trend. Now you've got a problem. And I think you've just described what needs to be fixed. I don't know how you change. I don't know how you make all the teams better, but you can make the games more interesting. Get rid of a lot of the penalties and stuff.
Yeah, there could be a lot of symptoms for other teams are bad that could warrant a whole, week's worth of discussion. But we're not going to fix it here. I just wanted to get that through because I thought all those stats were pretty interesting and pretty telling as to what we've got on the field this season in the NFL. But as far as the on-field product itself and the results, let's start back on Thursday where one of those teams we mentioned, the Falcons. They rebounded nicely on Thursday night, 6-3. They moved their record to with a 43-28 win over the Buccaneers. The other thing that comes out of this game, besides the Falcons moving up and people believing them a little bit more, I saw this week a lot of selling Jameis Winston stock. That maybe people don't think that he's as good as they thought he was. That the Buccaneers, everyone was high on the Buccaneers train, kind of like we were with the Jaguars and all that.
Okay.
But that he's not what they thought he was going to turn into. And this is his peak or whatever.
Okay, that's perfectly fair, and that's a perfectly valid opinion. I will ask this question in the defense of Jameis Winston. Outside of Mike Evans, what does he have to work with?
Right. Yeah, you think of what the Buccaneers have and the coaching staffs that they've gone through. I'm not concerned about his NFL future yet. He's still going to be there for a while, but he's not the ultimate game breaker, game changer that people might have tried to put on him early in his career.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, but I don't think he's a total bust either. I mean, when you've got Mike Evans, who's a great receiver, I mean, I couldn't name their running back at this point this year.
Doug Martin's injured, isn't he?
I think so, and I can't name any of the other receivers. Well, there's part of the problem right there. I mean, would Dak Prescott be as good without Zeke Elliott? Probably not. No. It's just I'm not ready to throw the towel on him completely. Is he going to be like a Tom Brady, Cam Newton level quarterback? That remains to be seen. I would probably say more towards maybe a step down from that level. Still be a good quarterback, but I'm not ready to give up on him yet.
Yeah, the Buccaneers are 0-4 at home. That's partially what prompted this too.
Wow.
3-1 on the road, 0-4 at home.
Wow.
Whereas the Falcons are 4-1 on the road.
Again, wow.
Yeah, I mean, you think a team like the Falcons, considering where they play, that they would be much better in the Georgia Dome, but they're only 2-3, 2-2 on the road.
2-2 at home. 2-2 at home, 4-1 on the road. So what do we add on the Falcons? Do we think they're actually good or not? I think they're second tier, probably.
Second tier, best team in their division, I think, clearly at this point.
Yeah.
The Saints have kind of pulled things together a little bit. They're 4-4, but the Buccaneers, the Falcons have done well against them both times, and the Panthers just aren't what they used to be. And despite the Saints pulling themselves to 4-4, I'm not saying by any stretch that they're a good football team either.
Saints, they're fun though. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've always been that with the offense and Drew Brees and all that, but defensively they're not good, and sometimes the offense can't put up enough to get them over the hump.
Yeah, you've got with the Saints, you've got our Big 12 team in the NFL. That's who they are.
Yeah.
They can score points, but they're going to give up a lot of points. So if you can score points too, you got a good chance of beating them.
Yeah. Interesting that when looking at the division standings for this, the Buccaneers have a negative 52 point differential at 3-5. The Panthers are 3-5 and have a -2 point differential. So
I don't know what's up with the Panthers. Cam Newton's not having a good year. It's a lot of different things.
No, but they did get a win against the Rams on the road on Sunday. God, the Rams, it's so bad. And we had a long discussion on the main mothership show about Jared Goff and the Rams quarterback situation. But
I was just going to do a cross-platform plug. If you want to hear more about it, listen to this week's Basically a Sports Show. We went into great detail on it.
What you need to know about this game, because it was a garbage football game from start to finish. The Panthers were up 7-0 for 45 minutes of this game, and then the Rams got their first score with 32 seconds left, or their first touchdown with 32 seconds left in the game to make it 13.
I was watching it, yeah.
Not great.
No.
But anyway, elsewhere in the early goings, the Steelers fall to the Ravens on the road. Ben Roethlisberger's first game back, he was 23 of 45, 264, but still didn't look completely right. And the Ravens were able to pull out a tight one here, 21-14, making that whole division a big clusterfuck.
Do you think that the Steelers, okay, this is what I was wondering about the Steelers. Are they a good team going through a rough stretch, or are they an average team that looks pretty good once in a while?
Oh, man.
I'm kind of leaning more towards they're an average team that looks pretty good on occasion.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say where they would be if Ben Roethlisberger had been healthy the last 3 weeks and still been on a roll and all that sort of thing. I'm not going to take too much from them. I'll wait another week. Let Roethlisberger get fully back into things and fully healthy and see where he stands in a couple weeks or so. Because here's the thing with them too. I mean, you look at the division: Ravens are 4-4, Steelers are 4-4, Bengals are 3-4-1, and then Cleveland 0-9. How's it going, Browns?
Hello down there. Hello.
But it's a very tight division. But I think of the three teams that are there, I'm surprised that the Ravens won this game to stay 4-4.
But this is a good rivalry game too. This one's always kind of been one of those you kind of throw the books out on it. But still, I'm a little concerned about my Steelers, to be honest.
I'm concerned, but they're still the best team in the division. They're going to make the playoffs. They'll pull back together in a way at some point. And I'll just give them that time to kind of piece things together, because we had said for a long time that they are probably the best team that could have taken down the Patriots, but
I guess it's
hard to say.
That's more my question. Do you still think they're that team? I'm not so sure anymore. Again,
at this moment, if they were to play this week, no.
I'm not giving up on them. And again, this team could just as easily finish the season at 12-4 right now. I mean, they could run off 8 in a row like nobody's business.
Right.
But I'm kind of selling a little bit of my Steelers stock. Not all of it, but I'm going to take some of my Steelers stock and put it somewhere else.
Right. But then again, when the Patriots and Steelers played the first week that Roethlisberger was injured, Patriots only won by 7 or 10 points?
That's true. That's true.
Maybe it's just one of those matchup things.
Could be. Well, you could be right. We'll see what happens when Roethlisberger gets healthy and he's completely healthy. He's back in the system for another week or two, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I mentioned the Browns. They were close after the first quarter.
Yeah.
7-3. Cowboys go on to win that 35-10. Dak Prescott's 21 of 27, 247, 3 TDs. Ezekiel Elliott's 92 yards. The Browns had yet to allow a 100-yard rusher against them this season.
Yeah, and this is a really good sign for the Cowboys, though. It really is. It shows that if you shut down Zeke Elliott, which I guess the Browns kind of did with 92 yards, Prescott's got enough to go out and beat you anyway, and I think that's kind of what happened here. A couple things about this game. The Cowboys went in and did exactly what a good team is supposed to do when they play a team that doesn't have any wins. So good to see that, which makes me think the Cowboys are legit. And also, believe it or not, this is my number one game of the week on my best and worst list.
Oh.
Yeah. I just thought the blue and the orange looked really good together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the Cowboys having to wear their blue uniforms, which,
I think are fantastic myself.
I think they're great, too.
Yeah.
But concerning the Cowboys, it looks like Tony, according to ESPN, as I'm looking at it right now, Tony Romo is going to be a coaching decision this weekend.
Oh, boy.
he's healthy enough. They showed him taking snaps in practice. He wasn't wearing pads or anything. He was still doing it in a t-shirt and a baseball cap. But the Cowboys are getting around to that time where they got to make that choice.
Oh,
we talked about it plenty, but even yes, it was the Browns, but Dak Prescott is the guy right now.
Yeah, and something else too. I'd point out the Browns. Yes, they're 0-9, but they've been competitive in almost every game they've played this year. This is the worst they've been beaten all season. So, yeah, they're an 0-9 team, but I wouldn't write it off as like, well, it's just the Browns. I mean, it's a great win for the Cowboys. Not a great one, obviously, but it's not one of those where you go, well, it's just the Browns, so we're going to put Tony in because Dak wasn't that great. I don't. Come on. They gotta. They can either play with fire or they can leave their team alone. It's up to them. I'll be curious to see what they decide.
Chiefs with a 19-14 win at home over the Jaguars, tighter than it probably should have been, but
this one,
Chiefs are 6-2.
Little quarterback controversy going on in Kansas City between Nick Foles and Alex Smith. Believe it or not,
Nick Foles.
What does that tell you right there?
Yeah. But I think it tells you. I think it tells you more about Alex Smith,
right?
Where he's always been good enough. He's basically the better version of Case Keenum.
Yeah.
He can win you more football games probably, but he's still middle of the road quarterback. He's the top of the middle is what Alex Smith is.
But I even heard them say on the game, I watched a little bit of it, that if Nick Foles keeps throwing downfield like this, because I think he hit Travis Kelce with a nice long touchdown, and it was a pretty play. And they're like, if he keeps doing this, he's going to end up getting this job over Alex Smith. And I thought, wow, I don't know if Andy Reid's, I don't know. It'll be curious to see, but I didn't realize, because I know Smith had a concussion. He was out for a little bit, but I didn't realize there was any controversy between who should play going forward. It seems like there might be just a little bit, so we'll find out.
Wouldn't that be great for Alex Smith? The 2 times he gets a concussion in his career, he loses his job.
Yeah, really.
But Chiefs 4-0 at home, 6-2 overall. They're still right up there in that AFC West race, right there in the playoff contention. They're doing just fine. But again, we don't think that they're any threat down the road. Probably the same thing as they've been in the past, where they make the playoffs, lose the first round. Good season, but not,
their best hope right now, and I don't know how this might happen with the Patriots being who they are, but their best hope for the Chiefs, win out, get home field advantage, and that's probably your best shot at actually taking a run at the Super Bowl. Short of that, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, if the season were to end right this second, the Chiefs would be the first wild card, and they would play the AFC North winner.
Yeah,
now it's at the Ravens because of tiebreakers, but it would most likely you'd have Steelers Chiefs in the first round.
But yeah, for the Chiefs, I think to really have a legitimate, get excited about it if you're a fan shot, they've got to have home field throughout because they're not good enough to go on the road and beat New England. I don't even know if they're good enough to go on the road and beat a team like Pittsburgh or whatever. So that's where they're at, I think.
Yeah. Dolphins move up to 4-4 with a 27-23 win. Just another team to throw into the middle of the standings around the league. The Dolphins have had a nice little resurgence here. They started, what were they, like 1-3, and
I want to say,
they pulled themselves back pretty well here. Again, they're in the mix. They're 2 games out of a playoff spot right now. But I think the AFC playoffs, if you look at things right now, are pretty solid because you have the entire AFC West outside of San Diego. The Raiders have 7 wins. The Chiefs and the Broncos both have 6. They're at least 2 games ahead of everybody else.
Right.
So unless there's some major screw ups by the Chiefs or Broncos, I don't see anybody else breaking into the top 6 in the AFC.
And certainly not the Dolphins. They do this to us every year. It's either they start out quick and we go, hey, could be, or they do this and they come back and put a little run together and we go, could it be? No. They're what you see right now. They're 4-4. They might go 8-8, probably more like 6-10, be my guess.
Into the NFC East, and the New York Football Giants back up in second place. 5-3 overall with a 28-23 win over the Eagles at home. After starting 3-0, the Eagles have lost 4 of their last 5 with Carson Wentz at QB. The wonderkind coming back down to earth a little bit for the Eagles.
Yeah, this is kind of curious. I don't know that I'm terribly surprised by this. I don't think anybody had the Eagles as being a great team this year, but it looked like they might be pretty good. And now I'm beginning to think maybe they were more like what we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. But I still think Wentz is your guy. I think you found the right quarterback. And just keep playing games and hope for the best. The Giants, aren't the Giants the only team that have beaten the Cowboys this year?
Yeah, in week one, in what was like a 2-point game. But
Giants are 5-3. They're in the hunt, and they're doing about what we expected. I think the Cowboys are a little bit of a surprise, but the NFC East, I'm going to say it. I think that outside of the AFC West, it's the best division in football. Definitely in the NFC.
Yeah, as far as the whole NFC goes. Yeah, the Giants, they move up into a wild card spot, the 5th wild card spot. Washington is the 6th wild card currently. It's hard to read the standings with them because they're 4-3-1, and then Detroit's right behind them at 5-4. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. But yeah, they're right there. The NFC East has pulled together nicely, but I don't know. I think with the Eagles, it's one of those situations where the rookie quarterback comes in, you haven't really seen too much of him because he didn't really play that much in the preseason,
right?
And he goes out to 3-0. Now you have tape on him.
Yep.
You kind of lock down on what he does and what makes him uncomfortable, and
just like
he's done a good job adjusting.
Like a baseball pitcher that comes up and he's just lights out for like the first 3 weeks of his career, and then he gets around, everybody sees him and gets to know what he does, and all of a sudden he's not so good anymore. But I just think that with the NFC East this year, usually it's a bunch of 8-8 teams trying to rise to 9-7. I think it's a little bit better than that this year.
Yep. No, I mean they're. Like I said, they have the hold on the 2 wildcard spots right now, plus the Cowboys leading the conference. And as far as teams that are going to challenge them, I mean, Detroit's 5-4. They're right behind the Vikings too. And then you have 4-4, 4-4, 4-4, 3-4-1 with the Cardinals kind of lead, at the bottom of that pack there. I think there's more room for movement in the NFC playoff picture.
Absolutely.
Either one of those NFC East teams could fall out. Detroit could keep its run of luck going. Maybe the Saints can string together a couple. The Packers, put their head back on their shoulders and string together a couple. There's room for a run at the bottom of the NFC or the bottom of the NFC standings.
Yeah,
at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. I think the AFC, you're right, it's pretty much locked up, barring a couple teams just falling apart. But there's a little more. But again, though, you're not getting like good teams. I mean, it's just. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a weird season.
Throwing a wrench really into the NFC over the weekend was one of the many overtime games we've had this season. The Lions, with a surprising run of play here, they force this game into overtime and they win on a touchdown. Lions knock off the Vikings at home 22-16. Vikings have lost 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And the Lions, they've got a good streak going here. They've won, 3-4 in a row? And the other thing with the Lions, though, is they've made a lot of fourth quarter comebacks this season. Oh. They've been tight or down at the end of these games and pulled ahead late, won this one in overtime. Things are bouncing the Detroit Lions' way, and they've got themselves a half game out of the playoffs.
Well, they started 1-3, and since then they have gone 4-1. The Lions, so they're playing good football, and they haven't beaten a bunch of schlubs either. I mean, granted, they haven't run the gauntlet or anything, but since their loss to the Bears back in Week 4, they've beaten the Eagles, the Rams, the Redskins, lost to the Texans, and beat the Vikings on the road. So, again, not exactly the greatest schedule, but not exactly an easy one either.
A team that's lost to the Bears and the Titans and the Texans is somehow in playoff contention.
That's true, too. That's another way to look at it.
Yeah, that's really weird.
But I like the Lions. I think that every year we get a team that kind of surprises. And all of a sudden, at the end of the year, you're going, wait, they made the playoffs. I think the Lions might be that team this year.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing to think about with them is they're doing this in the year that Calvin Johnson retired.
Yeah.
Right? But they still have just as many offensive weapons, and a lot of that credit goes to Matt Stafford, who's played very well this season. Kind of an underrated, maybe under the radar MVP type candidate should the Lions, go ahead and win the division or something like that. But he's continued to be a productive quarterback in this league, and it's kind of amazing the numbers he's been able to put up.
I just think of like a Matthew Stafford. I think how good would he be with say that Cardinals team last year?
Yeah,
with Larry Fitzgerald and that David Johnson and all the weapons they have. Not that it's just like sometimes you look at a guy like. We talked about Larry Fitzgerald last year. Like, what a shame he had to play his whole career for a lot of bad Cardinals teams. And I'm looking at Matt Stafford going, how good would he have been with a better team? But anyway.
The Saints, they started 0-3 They're now up to 4-4 with a 41-23 win over the 49ers. This kind of shows just kind of what the Saints do. The 49ers aren't going to score 23 points against many teams with how they're currently made.
Yeah.
But the Saints still are going to score 41 and allow 23, and they're okay with that to move up to 4-4 with a big win.
Yes, the Big 12 version of the NFL, the New Orleans Saints.
Yes, very much so. See, the Chargers pull out a tight one at home over the Titans, 43-35.
This was a fun game. I don't know if you watched any of this, but it was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun. Like you said, kind of a Big 12 situation with just being able to pass the ball all the time. The biggest Chargers news this week, though, comes from Election Day, where they had Measure C on the ballot, having San Diego.
I forgot all about that.
Having the city of San Diego vote for money to build it a stadium. They didn't even get 50% on the ballot, where they had to get 2/3 favor. And so the Chargers not going to be getting that stadium funding. So that for a lot of people, that seemed like it was Dean Spanos' Hail Mary attempt to get some funding there. And we may be talking about the Los Angeles Chargers sooner rather than later.
Yeah, you know what? As much as I hate to see the Chargers leave San Diego, I can't blame the people of San Diego for not wanting to pay for a stadium. I can't blame them at all.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, completely understandable.
Yep.
It's just so weird. The Chargers seem so much like San Diego's sports team, even more so than the Padres or, any of that. The Chargers are San Diego sports, and it's just going to be, kind of sad to see them move up here, because again, we don't really need them up here at this point.
Don't need them, don't want them, and I think that if Dean Spanos really went out and worked at it, he could probably find a way to put together enough money to get something done.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
He has the money, I'm sure, to be able to do it himself.
Or sell the team to somebody who wants to keep it in San Diego. Sell it to somebody with deeper pockets that's willing to do what needs to be done. I mean, I get it if you're like the Rooney family and you've got 6 Super Bowl titles and you want to do it, but that's not the case with the Chargers. So I don't know. Move to Los Angeles and become the Clippers, I guess, is your other option.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they're going to move up here, and a lot of us up here are going to just feel bad for San Diego because, we don't really want them, and we feel genuinely, as a Los Angeles sports fan, we feel bad taking this team away. Yeah. And they're going to be second fiddle forever. And
they're the Clippers. They're going to be the Clippers. It's as simple as that.
I mean, even worse for them if they end up playing in the Coliseum in the interim before the stadium's built, they're going to be third fiddle in the Coliseum behind USC and in the Rams. So.
And how ridiculous is the Coliseum going to look with 22,000 fans at a game? If that, I just there's got to be a better way than moving them to Los Angeles, and hopefully someone will figure it out.
Yeah. As far as teams that might be moving and celebrating their successes elsewhere. The soon-to-be Las Vegas, but still currently the Oakland Raiders, in a primetime game in the Oakland Coliseum, black hole roaring. That was a fun game to watch. It was fun to have a meaningful game like that at night in Oakland. And the Raiders took advantage of it. Latavius Murray had a great day, 3 touchdowns, 20 carries, 114 yards, and the Raiders run all over the Broncos for a 30-20 win at home to give them sole possession of first place in the AFC West. And a 7-2 record. Raiders are a fun football team, and they're reaching the potential that we thought they could have got to.
I agree completely. They got a nice win. This is one that they had to make. They had to get the win here to, first off, I think, legitimize themselves with the sports viewing world and maybe a little bit with themselves. And they did. They're 7-2, and you know what? My Packers are 4-4. My Browns are 0-9. It's time to jump and go on a bandwagon. I'm with the Raiders. I want to see them take it all the way. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
the Chiefs, I suppose. I don't know. I'll figure it out next week.
Raiders are just super fun.
They are.
Hard to argue just how fun that team.
They kind of like we were talking. I don't know if it was on this show or on basically a sports show about the Cowboys and how I think it was on this show. We were like, we don't like them, but it's kind of fun to watch them this year.
Yep.
Yeah, and I like the Raiders, and it's fun to see, but they're a team that could surprise. I don't know. It's going to be fun to see how this plays out for them.
Well, and again, the way things are currently situated in the AFC, 15 years after the fact, could we see the Raiders go into New England and avenge the Tuck Rule game?
I think that would be perfect justice, if you ask me. Go on and get a win, because I still contend to this day they made that rule up on the spot. I don't know how else to explain. I'm like, I have never even heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even a rule anymore. Didn't they take that out?
I think they might have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a funny thing, but the Raiders are running really well right now, and it's in the past everyone hates the Raiders and hates Raiders fans, but because they've been down for so long in the style of football that this team is playing, they're a fun watch.
They've kind of gone the other direction. They used to be the villains, and now they're kind of like the underdog everybody likes. Which is again, when you've lived as long as I have, you see some weird things in sports. Believe me.
And then on Monday night, the Seahawks beat the Bills 31-25. Seahawks are 5-2-1 on top of the AFC or NFC West.
Yeah.
Not much to say about that game, huh?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, I was impressed with how well Buffalo played. They kind of hung in it, which I didn't think they would. But Seahawks, man, as much as we wanted them to go away, I mean, at least we didn't like last year. We kept going, this is it, they're done. This year we're like, no, they're going to be okay. And here they are again. They're not going anywhere.
College football, and the first week that we were able to play with college football playoff rankings to teams' names. We talked for like a half hour last week about how could they throw Texas A&M at the number 4 spot? What a travesty. This is ridiculous. Hi, Texas A&M.
Bye, Texas A&M.
Goodbye, Texas A&M. Yeah, pretty much. The top 3 remain the top 3. Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, they all moved up to 4-1, or to 9-0 to go into the top 4 of the rankings. And then the Texas A&M Aggies, they were ranked number 4. They were ahead of Washington. How could they be ranked like this? This is ridiculous, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they decided to go ahead and lay an egg in Mississippi State, of all places. Mississippi State, not the best team this season.
No.
But the Mississippi State was able to run all over the Aggies in this one. And Mississippi State beats the Texas A&M Aggies 35-28. All of our fears are assuaged. No chaos quite yet. If anything, this put things right back into order as they should have been.
Yep. And you got just saying, Michigan Wolverines, you got the Ohio State Buckeyes sitting out here at 5, waiting for you to come on down to Columbus in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the other team that we were kind of rubbing our heads a little bit about would be the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and I think my Buckeyes settled that question pretty quickly.
Yes. Well, first, Texas A&M, they dropped 4 spots this week to number 8. Washington moves up 1 spot with a big win over Cal. I thought that was going to be a shootout, 66-27 in Pac-12 after dark action. So good job, Washington. They host number 20 USC this week. There's your big game.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
But yes, Ohio State, they move up that 1 spot that was vacated by A&M. Washington moves up to 4. Ohio State moves up to 5 and 8-1 with a 62-3 beatdown of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who were 10th in the first poll. They are now, where did they fall all the way down to? 19. This was not close at any point. You even mentioned, Greg, that Nebraska fans think they have an excuse with their quarterback going out. But when the quarterback got injured and went out, they were already down 28-3. It was 31-3 at half.
Yeah.
It just never a second thought about who was going to win this game.
No, and it just one more note on that. It was just nice to see the Buckeyes finally kind of get back on the right track again after a couple of, the Penn State lost a couple of games that were closer than they should have been, and I don't know what happened, but they seem to have gotten their act back together against Nebraska. So now it's just a matter of keep on winning and see what happens at the end of the year.
Yep. So that again, the playoff teams look as they should.
Yep.
All 4-9-0, Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Washington. The only change, that could come up is if any of these teams, falters down the stretch. Alabama, they had a tighter than expected game against LSU, really fighting them for that number 1 ranking, but it was 0-0 through 3 quarters, right? And then Alabama pulled it out 10-0. Just the typical Alabama LSU football game, but Alabama pulled that one out. Any thoughts on the Crimson Tide? Does that put a dent on them? Does that make you think any less of them for a 10-0 win on the road at LSU?
Not really, because they got into a game that, when you get like that deep into a game and it's scoreless, crazy things can happen, and they still managed to pull out the win. And that's what great teams do. If they can't get it done, they always find a way. And the Crimson Tide found a way, and they won the game. And they're 10-0, and they're still number one in my book. I think it might give you a little bit of hope if you're Alabama, or Clemson or Michigan or Washington or maybe even Ohio State, where you go, okay, maybe they're not invincible. But other than that, no, I think they're still the number one team in the nation by a good margin.
Clemson beats Syracuse 54-0. Michigan beats Maryland 59-3. Again, to round out the top four of Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Washington. Ohio State 5 with a big win. Louisville moves up one spot as everyone behind A&M did with a 52-7 beatdown of Boston College. Wisconsin moves up to 7 with a 21-7 beatdown of Northwestern. A&M falls down to 8, like I said. Auburn stays where they are at 9 with a win over Vanderbilt, 23-16. Penn State moved up 2 spots for beating Iowa 41-14. Number 10 in the country.
I'm not buying this Penn State thing at all. This is our latest version of Nebraska here. And guess who's back right behind Penn State? We'll get to them in a minute. But Penn State, come on. I said they'd be better this year, but they are not number 10 team in the country good. Okay, yeah, they've got a nice signature win over Ohio State, but really, they're not this good. I mean, look at who is behind them. I would take most of the teams all the way down, probably, I'm going to go all the way down to even Western Michigan and say I would bet them to beat Penn State. I just don't see this. I don't see them at number 10. I'm not buying it for a second.
I'm not buying it either. I'm not buying Penn State at 10. Oklahoma moves up 3 spots to number 11 with a 34-24 win at Iowa State. I saw bits of that game. It was tight early. Iowa State was hanging with Oklahoma. That's a team that you think deserves to move up 3 spots?
Yeah.
Come on now. The reason that they moved Oklahoma up is because the rest of the Big 12 decided that it wanted to lose the last week. Baylor lost, West Virginia lost, all these undefeated teams that were in the Big 12 lost. So you say, oh well, I guess we'll just shift Oklahoma up because we need to have the Big 12 champion somewhere near the top. No, you don't.
No, you don't. You didn't last week.
No, and you know what? Somebody pointed this out. Oklahoma started off last week at number 14. You know where they started off in the playoff football rankings last year before they got into the playoff? 15.
15?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've got 2 losses now. I just don't see anybody in front of them. I mean, okay.
Hold on. Okay, so you say that, but let's think about it this way. Alabama beats Auburn. Auburn falls out. Oklahoma wins the Big Ten title. They can jump over Penn State. They could jump over Wisconsin, who's not going to win their conference. They can jump over Texas A&M, who's not going to win their conference. Louisville could win out and have some decent wins, but they're not going to win their conference. Maybe you say Washington loses to USC this week. Ohio State beats Michigan.
You got to look at those top. I'm going to say the top 6 teams. For Oklahoma to get in, each of those top 6 all have to have 2 losses, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's either they all have to have 2 losses, or they're really just waiting until people clinch their conference championships before they can if they can launch one of these teams forward. And I don't get it. I have faith enough in the top teams as they are in what they're going to be playing against the rest of the way that they can do it. Washington probably has the toughest schedule of the rest of them because they get number 20 USC at home this week. And USC, despite us kind of burying them early, they've rebounded very nicely. Sam Darnold's fit in a quarterback for them, and
they've done a good job.
They've done a really good job of getting back into the race. They're in the thick of things in the Pac-12 South now. So they get USC. They still have to play Washington State later, who's still ranked. Wazoo is 23 after a 69-7 win over Arizona. Those are 2 teams that are going to score a hell of a lot of points when they play each other. And then they're going to have to play a ranked Colorado or Utah in the Pac-12 title game. So there are still 3 at least ranked teams left on Washington's schedule that they have to go through. Michigan could lose to Ohio State, but that would probably be the only time they lose.
Yeah.
Because you don't see them losing to Iowa or whoever the hell else they have before Ohio State.
Not the way they're playing, no. I mean, one thing I'll give Jim Harbaugh credit for is that team is ready to play every week. They don't let up, and that's a good sign. I mean, if I had to pick a dark horse out of this thing, outside, I think Michigan, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if Michigan wins the whole thing this year. I don't think they're that good, but he's just got that team ready to play every week.
Yeah.
And if you can catch an Alabama on an off week, Michigan can beat them, I think.
It'd be something. But basically what I'm trying to put in there is that there are spots for these teams to slip up. And, I thought Texas A&M was still pretty good, and I thought that they could win out their schedule and really make a mess of things in that 4 spot. But they go out the very next week and lose to a team that's not very good on the road.
Yeah.
So things happen in college football. That's what makes it kind of exciting. Sometimes these big teams can lose at some point. It doesn't look like any of them will based on the schedules going forward, but the opportunity is there. And again, Oklahoma's getting some undue love from the committee that I just won't ever get.
Well, I would just say, too, that with the college football thing, people that didn't want the playoff because they said it would make the regular season meaningless. Really?
Yeah.
Have you noticed it's still pretty meaningful? I think it's more meaningful now than it ever has been.
Yeah, I think having one loss isn't as much of a killer as it used to be.
Right.
But, because you could lose early and still come back from it, or lose and still be considered good, or there can be outstanding circumstances. But I think that's a good thing overall, because there's been plenty of really good teams that have been denied a chance to play for a title because they slipped up once somewhere.
Right. I agree.
And there have been plenty of undeserving teams that were undefeated and got to play for national championships or things of that nature. Or you have undefeated teams that didn't get to play either. So I think this is, all in all, this is still a better system than what we had before.
Absolutely. And it just makes the season
it makes it great.
Makes the season so much more fun. Yeah. So, I mean, and even, like you said, with the one loss thing, I mean, I in a normal season with 4 undefeated teams in front of them, Ohio State's done. But not now. Yep. Or Louisville's done. I mean, I guess you could even say I don't think 2 losses, barring some really crazy stuff, 2 losses is enough. But you still got teams that are still in it, and it's going to be great. It means everything means stuff all the way through the end of the season, because even if it doesn't mean anything in your conference, it still means something in the overall playoff picture. And that's, I think, a new wrinkle in this that we didn't have before.
Yep. As I'm looking down the standings, the Big 12 got a lot of extra attention this week. Colorado moved up 3 spots. I don't know if Colorado is 12 in the country, but that's still nice to see.
It's really good to see. I'm glad to see the Buffs finally kind of come out of the woods.
But Oklahoma State moves up 5 spots for beating Kansas State 43-17 or 37.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State's number 13 team in the country? I don't think so.
Well, Oklahoma State, Tech, Virginia Tech. But what are you going to do? I mean, these are the teams that have the record,
Yeah.
I mean,
but yeah, it's that. So ahead of all these teams, there's only 2 that moved down. Florida dropped out from number 11, and then A&M moved down 1 spot in Nebraska, or A&M fell and Nebraska fell from the top, from 11 forward. So those are 3 teams. So I guess I get why you move Oklahoma 3 spots up, because 3 teams in front of them. Well, but only 2 of them fell behind Oklahoma. So Oklahoma jumped somebody in this process.
Right.
Penn State moved up to 2. Penn State jumped up 2. They were supposed to. Colorado jumped somebody. Oklahoma State jumped several people to move up 5. Virginia Tech, same thing. Utah only moved up 1. West Virginia moved up 4. North Carolina moved up 4. Florida State moved up 4. I get that the middle to lower parts of these rankings are going to be maybe a little bit more fluid just because of the way the committee operates, but I don't know. There are things that, yes, as of right now, the national championship picture looks safe for now until somebody slips, and then we put Oklahoma up to number 4 for no reason.
That won't happen, but it
won't. But
right now, you basically
got too dangerously close.
Barring something crazy and unforeseen, you got 6 teams playing for 4 spots right now. And really, the team that's probably on the outside looking in, regardless of what happens, is probably going to be Louisville. Because they've got that game in Houston coming up here in a couple weeks that was supposed to be a huge game, and it's not anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they can win the conference. So even though they're at number 6, they're probably on the outside looking in already. Ohio State's got to win out and win the conference, and then the rest of it, it's just, keep on winning.
Any last words before we go on our way?
2 things. The world is not going to end, so everybody just take a minute and relax. And secondly, go Rockets.
None of my football teams are go-worthy anymore. Follow us on all our platforms and enjoy the football, everybody.